Well, first of all, I think on behalf of everybody, I'd like to thank Chris for a wonderful 90 minutes of quite a remarkable film. I might be biased working for the Orwell guys, but nevertheless, I think it's an outstanding achievement. And it's a very interesting piece of work in the way it's done, and I'm sure we'll come on to that. But I wanted to start with my first question by dispensing with a sort of detailed description, arresting simile and purple passages that the young Orwell would have liked, and just ask something very straightforward, which is, how did you come to be involved in George Orwell Life and Pictures?
Well, the film was made for the BBC. It was the centenary of Orwell's birth. It was about 5 or 6 years ago, and naturally it's one of those things that television loves. Any kind of anniversary. Orwell was obviously going to be a subject that all the channels were going to cover, and the BBC cast around. They literally sort of put out, who wants to make the Orwell centenary film? There's a pot of money. Who wants it? And so every television producer around with their salt sent in a proposal, and I had always really loved Orwell's writings, in particular his journalism, and that's why that was the heart of my original idea, was his journalism. And I sent in my proposal, which was basically, as you saw, it's all full of fake little films, and I just sent in, I knew there was no archive, and I just sent in a sort of, it was a list of films that if all the archive that you wanted to have existed, what would it be like? And I just sent in this imaginary archive report just listing all the little films with the people who directed them, the camera people, the style, a description. It was just a page. Then there was much more to follow, but that's how I got to be making this film.
So how similar was the finished product to your initial idea? Were there any major changes along the way?
It was very similar. I mean, it was in many ways a very easy film to make for me. I can't think of another time when everything has gone so well. Everything sort of fell into place. And so, yes, I mean, obviously a lot of things did change, but it is what we set out to achieve. I might say we didn't think we'd be able to pull it off. You know, I remember thinking at the time, what have I let myself in for?
Did you have much help from the sort of Orwell scholars at the time? I mean, Sir Bernard Crick, DJ Taylor, Peter Davison, who edited the complete works?
Peter Davison, no. I did speak to Bernard Crick. DJ Taylor was the consultant to the programme. So, I mean, they'd all written books. I read the books. So, yes, a little, naturally.
But you already knew an awful lot about Orwell through being a fan?
No, not really. No, one of the things you learn when you become a filmmaker or you work in television is you very quickly acquire the ability to become an instant expert. And so I became an instant expert in Orwell. Not as, not in DJ Taylor's eyes, of course, but I thought I was good.
But it was the journalism that sort of struck you?
That was it, the essays, the journalism. That was always at the heart of my original approach to the film, yeah.
I mean, the docudrama approach to it just made everything feel incredibly real, but it obviously made your job a lot more difficult in having to sort of reconstruct all of that footage that never really existed to start with. Some of your other films, I mean, I'm thinking in particular of In Praise of Hardcore, which was a BBC4 production about the life of Kenneth Tynan. That also seems to deal with reconstructing the past through a sort of modern drama production. Does that sort of style in particular, why does that attract you?
Well, I do like that style. I do like it when films blur the boundary, and books as well blur the boundary between fact and fiction. The Kenneth Tynan film that you mentioned, which I made after this one, I did always slightly see as being of a pair with it, because it's also about another English journalist who also got into trouble by being too honest in terms of sticking to what he believed was right. I don't think, I would sort of take issue with your point about it's harder to sort of set it in the documentary drama territory than in the drama territory. The Kenneth Tynan film was a drama, and frankly it's easier to create a world, it's easier to create a world when most of it is anyway real, and you only have to fill in the bits that aren't real, which is what we did here. So most of the archive that you see in this film is real archive. So all we had to do was shoot the bits with George Orwell in and put them in. So we didn't have to make a 90-minute film, we only had to make a 45-minute film.
That sort of leads on quite nicely to my next question, actually. How much research was involved? I mean, as you said, there isn't actually any recording of Orwell's voice that we know about. We think there might be a few seconds of footage of him at Eton just walking across a playing field. But there are 20 rather hefty books making up the collected works. So, I mean, where did you begin in researching Orwell?
Yeah, a lot of reading. Yeah. I mean, there's 20 books, but that's, you know, I mean, that including the shopping lists. We read all of the obvious essays, and then we read the less obvious essays, and you know, we had the main works, and we blocked it out with them as being the sort of big points in the story, and then we kind of we'd need something to illustrate something going on at this time in his life, so we'd go and look at all the essays written around that time in his life. It kind of covered that area. So we didn't like read everything he wrote from beginning to end and then sit down and think, well, let's write a script. It was more magpie-like than that.
Would have taken you forever had you read all of it.
Yes, I mean, we probably did by the end of it, but you know, it took the best part of a year from the beginning of having the idea to delivering the film, and in that time we probably did read everything, including the shopping lists, but we didn't, you know, took quite a long time, and the process of making the film interwove with the process of the research.
Were there any works of Orwell that you filmed or covered in any way that didn't make the final cut, or was there a sort of filtering process as you were going along?
There is not a sequence that we filmed, another thing of making low-budget filmmaking, which this is, there's not a sequence that we filmed that isn't in the film. And that's quite rare that you manage to pull that off, but that's, you know, everything. I think there's one sequence, there's the politics and the English language sequence, which is towards the end, is in fact a sequence that was added in the cutting room. So in fact we added a sequence rather than took one away.
So there would be a sort of director's cut version of the DVD in that case?
No.